What is up, guys? Pulse Panda here. I do have another video for you guys. Today is a TvZ matchup analysis video. Before we kick things off, I do want to say a couple things. Reminder that I am going to be streaming Thursday and Friday noon-ish until 5 to 5:30 Central Standard Time, and Sunday noon until 5:30 Central Standard Time. Just come by, stop by. You know, I'm going to be playing some StarCraft and maybe a little bit Minecraft, Guild Wars, maybe some Hearthstone. But I'm here to answer questions. I want to help you guys get better at this game, and feel free to stop by and ask any questions. I want to interact with my chat. Now, I've been getting some complaints about these videos I've been doing for the matchup analysis. I just want to do a quick disclaimer. These games in the background are there for a reason. They highlight some of the points I'm trying to make, as well as give you an idea of what's going through the pro's head when they're playing the matchup. And they're geared towards newer players. They're not trying to give you an idea. They are trying to give you an idea of what's going on for each matchup and the general way you should try and approach it. They're not master guides. They're not, handbooks on how to play. Those will come later. These are just tools to help you improve, as they're part of the StarCraft as a noob series. Now let's get on to what I actually want to talk about. So TvZ is one of my favorite matchups. It's a lot of fun to play and it's extremely dynamic, but it also makes it kind of hard to talk about. So the first thing I really want to cover is, if you're not prepared for what they're doing, the Zerg can overrun you almost instantly. That's their point. They're the swarm race. The Terran is not, and they're not always ready for something, that massive to attack. So because of this, and because of the diversity of the Zerg and how many things they can do, walling your ramp is a must. All the time, no exceptions ever. The Zerg doesn't have anything to pick off your wall besides banelings, which forces him to waste Vespene on banelings and, not drone for those. And it also gives him less Zerglings to play with. It's safer to wall, it also stops slings, and it pops the banelings, like I just said. Another thing is that your building placement should be funnel-like, forcing the Zerg, if he gets slings into your base through your wall, say he does a baneling bust, he has to funnel his units, making them easier to pick off, and Zerglings do the most damage when they can surround a target. If they're funneled, they can't really surround a target, so that makes a very big advantage in your favor. Now, based on what you scout, you're going to want to determine when or where you want to build your expansion, whether it be on the high ground or actually in your natural. And I'm going to cover scouting a little bit later, but basically, if he doesn't have a hatchery before his pool is a quarter of the way done, build your expansion on the high ground. That's just a great rule of thumb. It'll get you far, and it doesn't let your command center be picked off because of a dangerous placement. Another thing I want to mention is that bunkers are great defense. It takes 5 banelings to kill 1 bunker, not to mention it protects your marines, and you can repair it. Walling your natural ramp, especially in maps like Overgrowth, where it's really important, can really destroy a ling push because they're not ranged. They're not going to pick anything off, so anything they're hitting, your bunker is going to be able to hit too. So now on to scouting, the fun part. Now, a lot of people have different ways they like to scout. Personally, like I've said before, I like to scout when I place my barracks. It just makes me feel a little safer on ladder, and it actually catches a lot of stuff off guard. So let's just pretend you're going to scout with an SCV when you place your barracks, or just a little bit before. What you want to look for is a natural expansion and a spawning pool. If they have a pool more than a quarter of the way done and they don't have an expansion, they're going for some really early ling and baneling aggression, and you need to immediately just get into the habit of blocking off your ramp immediately. Just no delay, because if he gets any lings into your base, he's going to 9 times out of 10 win the game because of the SCVs he's able to pick off with them, because you don't have the energy to mule yet. So now, just assuming that he has a normal opener, he has his expansion, he has his, spawning pool and everything, you look for his gases. If he has 2 gas, he's either going to be going banelings or really early roaches. Now this is, again, just a thumb rule, or a rule of thumb. I'm sorry. Anyway, if he has the 2 gas, he's most likely going to be going banelings or roaches. Now also keep in mind that you can go banelings without 2 gas. You can do it with 1, but it's a lot more of an indicator. The point is, with the 2 gas, he can go tech, and you need to know what kind of tech he's going so that you can prepare appropriately. So to do this, what you need to do is you just need to keep your SCV around until you can see what they're doing with their building. Now, you don't really want to lose your SCV, so if you have to run away with it, just pop back in with the Reaper that you should have made, because Reaper Fast Expand is easily the best build against the Zerg at the moment. Also, another thing to keep in mind is that if the spawning pool starts wiggling while you're looking at it, it's getting Zergling speed, and you can expect some harassment with Zerglings. Because any Zerg doesn't just get speed just to get speed, they have a plan for it. Another thing you might want to keep in mind is that when you're scouting, it is kind of easy to get it picked off by a queen. Don't lose your Reaper to the queen. If you can't get scouting information without losing your Reaper, just use a scan. It's actually more economical for you to save your Reaper and see what else they're doing. Maybe you'll get something more out of your Reaper if you don't suicide it to see what they're doing. So if the spawning pool doesn't start wiggling by 4 minutes, meaning he's getting speed, then there should be a roach warren or something else tech related down, and you need to find it. Any other tech building should be down by 5 minutes and 30 seconds. If they're not, look for other bases, because no player's that bad. Another thing to keep in mind is that the queens can be a tell too. Now in the lower leagues it's a little less of a thing, so you don't really have to worry about it, and it's kind of touch and go, but generally, having 2 queens means that the Zerg is doing a timing build, and you need to learn what tech they're going for. 4 queens usually means that it's macro styled, and you need to put some pressure on the bases because he's not going to have a huge army right away. Another more personal note that I want to mention, don't be afraid to scan the Zerg. Too many games I've lost because I don't scout what they're doing, because I don't think about it around the 5 minute and 30 second to 6 minute mark. Scan their base. If you can't get a Reaper in there to see what they're doing, scan the base. You're going to regret it if you don't. If you don't see that they have Hydralisks, you need to see that they have Hydralisks. It's a big deal. So what are some units that are really good in this matchup? Well, there's a little bit narrower, but it's also broader at the same time. I know that doesn't really make sense, but you're just gonna have to trust me on this one. So Hellions and Reapers are great for map control and keeping the pressure on. So most builds start you out with a double Reaper into reactored Hellions, and you push around the 2 to 4 Hellion mark just to take some map control, see what they're doing, poke at them, maybe do a run by if you're feeling really lucky, or they're just mispositioned. But it's mostly to take map control, know where their bases are, know where their spawn is, know what units they're going for, keep creep spread under control, that sort of thing. So usually with that type of build, you want to go up to like, 6, 8, or 10 Hellions, and then don't try to just try not to lose them, because they can transition into Hellbats later in the game. And around the mid game, when you get your armory, transforming them into Hellbats is really, really strong. Yeah, they're slower, but they're really tanky, great for tanking Banelings, and they deal a lot of damage. They also do a lot of damage versus buildings, so doing drops with 4 to 8 Hellbats can snipe off a building pretty quickly, and it kills all their drones. So that's always something to keep in mind. So if you can not lose your Hellions, that would be great. So getting Marine and Marauders is 9 times out of 10 the best way to play this matchup, because they can keep pace with the Lings and the Banelings and the Mutas and the Ultralisks and everything else that they can keep. The only thing that they're really not great at is Swarm Hosts, that sort of thing. But, you do what you gotta do. So if you're able to stop a roach push because you have your Marauders out, well, that's just fantastic. So Widowmines are pretty good versus Lings, Banelings, and Mutas, and tanks are usually better against Roaches, Swarm Hosts, and Ultralisks. A lot of players will go with Mines over Siege Tanks because they're more mobile and they work better with a bio army. But early game, it's not necessarily a bad thing to get some Siege Tanks, especially if you see that they have a Roach Warren. If they have a Roach Warren, you're really going to want to get some Siege Tanks because they do better defense, and put them on the high ground, otherwise they're going to get sniped. Another warning is when you're using mines, be very careful not to let them kill your own units. If a Zergling runs by some mines and runs into your army, the mine can trigger on that Zergling and then kill your army because they knew where they were. Another thing to keep in mind is that Zergs will usually get some observers, or not observers, that's Protoss, overseers, and they'll be able to see the mines. So if they get any range units like Hydralisks, and I believe Roaches can outrange a mine, then you're going to have to play a little bit smarter with them and put them in some brush and whatnot. So now on to some strategies. I believe the most fun part of the game is the strategies. Everything else is all, nitpicky and technical. So in the game that's playing in the background, if you've been watching it, you'll notice that he does a lot of drops and a lot of split-pronged harass. And that's because the Zerg, like I said earlier in the video, is a swarm race. They do really well just with lots of units. That's the Banelings and the Speedlings. They can outnumber you by quite a bit, and they destroy your forces. So one thing to kind of deal with that is don't let them swarm you. If you're dropping all their bases, well then they can't do much about it. Another great thing about dropping is that a Zerg has to either make drones or make military units. So if you're able to kill off all his drones in a base, suddenly he can't make the next wave of military units because he needs to re-drone or he's going to go broke. Another great thing about drops is that the Zerg only has one tech building for each tech level. So if they have, hydralisks, you can just kill the hydralisk den and suddenly they're out of hydralisks. So if you can snipe a building when you drop as opposed to killing the drones, that also works really well. A great example of this is if you see they're going banelings, as opposed to having all of your military at the entrance to your base, to stop the banelings, take like a medevac and drop his Zergling nest or his spawning pool. Because the spawning pool is where the Zerglings come from, and the Zerglings are where banelings get their resources. So if you kill the Zerglings, you kill the banelings. And the spawning pool is actually weaker than the baneling nest, so you kill two birds with one stone there. One thing that you should really keep in mind, and I actually learned this relatively recently, if they have mutalisks on the map, a good Zerg player will try and get some of your workers and then focus on hitting your buildings. The reason for this is if they have mutas, you have enough energy, usually, to be muling until you get your workers back. So if he kills an entire mineral line, but you're already on 3 bases, just fill the mineral line with mules, and it's not going to affect your economy at all. And then you can just get your SCVs, and building SCVs doesn't stop you from building other stuff too, especially if you're on 3 bases, resources aren't always a problem. So with that in mind, instead of building tons of turrets around your mineral line, you should really be trying to build tons of turrets around your buildings, because your buildings, are where your units are built. So if he picks off, a tech lab that's researching combat shields, or if he picks off an entire barracks, well, now you really are losing out on a lot of stuff until you can get that barracks back up. So you want to defend those. Just keep that in mind. If you see that he has mutalisks, get some turrets on your mineral lines and then get them in your base. And make sure you get them up quickly before he kills your stuff. Another side tangent on that is if he does kill your worker line, just remain calm. Just take a deep breath, know that you watched this video and you know something he doesn't, and just mule the crap out of your mineral line. And then, build more units, build more SCVs. It's not going to delay you at all. By the time you have your mineral line restocked, you're out of mules. It's perfect. The last thing I want to mention in terms of strategies is that opening a double Reaper fast expand into reactored Hellions is a super freaking standard. If you don't do it, you had better have something really sneaky beaky up your sleeve. When opening with reactored Hellions, you want to make sure, just so you don't forget, because this is the strongest point of this build, you want to make sure you get your 3rd command center as soon as you have the resources. You get your barracks, you get your 2 Reapers, you get your reactor, you get your factory, you swap them, you make your 2 first Hellions, and then you build another command center. Because the strength of that build, the link will be in the description below, is the expansions. Because if you're ahead of the Zerg in expansions, or even with them, you're doing really well. The Zerg always wants to be 1 base ahead of you. So just keep that in mind. Don't forget it. That is the most important thing. Just don't. Otherwise, that's about all I have for you guys. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, hit the subscription button, do all that shenanigan stuff. I love the support. I'm looking forward to more videos with you guys. Don't forget that I'm going to be streaming on those days I mentioned at the beginning, because I'm too lazy to go back and mention them again. And that will be found at twitch.tv/pulsepanda, or if you really want, twitch.pulsepanda.com. Make sure to follow me on Twitter. All my stuff will be on there, including my streams. I will always announce 1 hour before whether or not I'm having some issues. I've been having issues with my ISP, so I'm trying to get those ironed out. I mentioned those on Twitter. I also on Twitter release when I release my videos and all that shenanigans. I like to interact with you guys. Be sure to ask me any questions in the comments below. Also, if you have any complaints, suggestions, concerns, or anything like that, leave those in the comments also. I like to hear those things. I love to, respond to you guys, and I want some feedback. Otherwise, thank you all for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day.